everyone, this is Jaclyn Krymowski with the Herd Book Ag Media here to catch you up for your last week of the month of January here in 2022. In our political news today, the EPA has recently announced that they are going to start tightening their compliance when it comes to the Endangered Species Act. Now, what does this have to do with agriculture? Well, apparently, the EPA says they are now going to be proactive in determining what active ingredients in farm chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, etc. might be harmful to species that fall under the Endangered Species Act. And this is kind of out of nowhere, as in the past, they certainly have not been consistent on the impact of these chemicals on species, and the results that they have had are not really that stellar. The new policy announcement read, "This lack of review resulted in insufficient protections from the new AIs for listed species, as well as resource-intensive litigation against EPA for registering new AIs, that's active ingredients, prior to assessing the potential effects on listed species," unquote. The EPA says as part of this, they're going to start conducting biological evaluations on every single new pesticide that gets registered here in the U.S., and they're going to also take into account how that's going to impact animals that are on the endangered species list, as well as roping in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services and the National Marine Fisheries Service to help weigh in on and propose new measures to avoid the risk. In other news, the American Farm Bureau Federation recently stated that while they do favor more transparent cattle markets for producers, they are also not too approving of the latest Senate bill that, as we've talked about before, requires meat packers to slaughter cattle on the cash market. Moving on now to our international news. In Spain, there was a march in the city of Madrid featuring 500 farmers as well as ranchers, hunters, and other supporters that are protesting the country's environmental and economic policies of the left-leaning government, arguing that they are in fact hurting rural communities, according to an ABC News report. This protest was organized by Alma Rural 2021, when this platform represents over 500 different organizations throughout all of Spain, with members of parties varying on political ideology. Moving over to Canada, according to the country's skyrocketing demand for canola oil, used both in food and fuel, there has been a move to increase the processing capacity of canola seed. Recently, there was a $289 million crush plant project that was introduced. They say that this plant is going to increase the country's total capacity by 62%. This would be the 5th canola crushing plant in the nation. Also, our global wheat flour trade, that's the 2021 through 2022 forecast, is said to reach its highest peak that we have seen in 3 years. And it's going to reverse a 5-year downward trend for the crop. This comes from projections that were issued just on the 13th of this month from the International Grains Council. The council predicts that 14.8 million tons of wheat equivalent is to be traded this year, with nearly 10% more than last year's total. Still not quite at the records, though, that we saw in 2016 to 2017, as reported by worldgrain.com. Moving on now closer to home with our national news. Right now, there is a $732 million project underway that is supposed to modernize the Mississippi River's lock and dam, going to essentially bring a very important shipping point for soybeans and corn being shipped from the Midwest. USDA here also released results from last year when they sampled nearly 10,000 fresh and processed fruits and vegetables for their pesticide residue levels. 99% tested safely well below the benchmark levels. And speaking of USDA, there is also a prediction for Florida's orange crop that is not very favorable. They say it's going to be the lowest since the year 1945. Right now, they estimate that 44.5 million 90-pound boxes are down a full 1.5 million from last month's forecast. The cause of this, which we also discussed last year, is still the issue of citrus greening, which has been destroying the state's crop for quite some time now. All right, that should catch you up for this week, and that wraps up our month. This Ag News Update is brought to you by the Herd Book Ag Media, serving all your agribusiness writing, communication, and media needs. Find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or our company website, the-herdbook.com. Let me know you found out about us here in Moving Iron and get 20% off your first invoice.